The update's only been out for like a week, but somehow here we are already with a couple of disaster saves that I'm gonna have to get down to work on. Today we're checking out an attempt at playing as America, and the guy who sent it to me says he's pretty sure I'm not gonna win, but it would be fun to see me try. I'm not sure if that means if I'm not gonna win the war, or if I'm not gonna fix the save, not entirely sure, but let's see what he has in store for us. Before we get started, if you want your save to be considered, then take a look at the description. It has a couple of instructions and rules for you to follow, and I should mention I'm only accepting 1.34 saves from now on, so just keep that in mind. And apologies if you can hear some dude hammering in the background. There are only really 2 seasons in Canada. There's winter and construction, and we're still in construction right now, so. Alright, what have you done here, my friend? A coalition of, around 200,000. Most of the combatants do not have very good tech, though. He stated most stuff, so that's good. -1 stability, which is kind of contributing to an issue over here. Internal conflicts looks relatively unavoidable right now, so. The economy is not looking terrible, although I can't help but notice all this interest over here. Because you're in 3,000 ducats of debt. Nice. Started off with expansion, quantity, trade, not bad at all. Right, so this war is entirely unwinnable. There's not even any sugarcoating this, it's just impossible. We're outnumbered almost 10 to 1, it's kind of like 8 to 1, sort of. I don't know, too lazy to do math. And I'm afraid that if we get occupied a whole lot by the enemy, then we're just gonna end up bankrupt because you already have so many loans. And that would not be a very good start. On top of losing land, becoming bankrupt and then having a bunch of rebels and then fracturing further is what will guarantee you a game over. So that's not a good idea. We could decide to either unconditionally surrender or figure out some sort of peace deal that they'll actually accept. So let's see what we can do about that. Alright, this looks like a fairly alright peace deal. I'm just gonna give a few provinces away and that's not really terrible. We'll lose these two, not a big loss. This one right here, this province, this one right here. All of the Iroquois, which we haven't actually finished coring, so before I send this I'm going to try to get at least a little bit of the cost back. Alright, yeah, that'll get us out of this mess. So, relatively large loss, something in the ballpark of, I don't know, 70 dev. Not terrible, could be worse. But hopefully you've learned your lesson about coalitions. Now, we do have some rebels to deal with. Fortunately, we will be intact to deal with those rebels, and we're going to also need a lot of stability. Now, your Republican tradition is pretty low, so the whole stability cost thing is a slight, and by slight I mean large, like really big issue, actually. But we can probably figure something out. Alright, on the bright side, at least you don't have that many separatists anymore. That's good. Especially because I'm going to have to decrease so much autonomy. I'm also going to exploit a little bit of development for some quick cash. The worst thing that can happen is going into even more debt. I'll take this so we can seize land more frequently, plus it's going to help with a bit of the corruption you've been getting. Oh yeah, we also managed to fix the internal conflicts. Honestly, I don't know how, I wasn't really paying attention, but as long as it's working, I don't really care. Oh yeah, I should mention, we get revanchism when we lose wars. This is something that a lot of people don't know about, and it's one of the reasons people are so stubborn about losing a war. Revanchism is kind of there to help you after you lose a war, and it's meant for pretty much this exact purpose. So for the next little while, we're going to get additional manpower, tax, reduced national unrest, reduced interest, which is very important, and we should be able to rebuild your army. Oh, also we get fur trade, cool. Works for me. Now, for the next little while, I'm going to be repaying your loans because that's one of the biggest expenses you have for absolutely no reason. And apparently we're privateering, okay. How is that looking for us? Privateer efficiency, a little bit of extra stuff. Okay, not bad. In all honesty, though, it's not making that much. Also, let's sell a little bit of crown land. Might be useful. We can use that to pay off a bit of debt. And never mind, just unlucky enough to not have the points necessary to make 2 stamp. Alright, it seems you're already pretty invested in trade and quantity, so I'll finish those up for you. Although, personally, I wouldn't have really picked trade right here. Sort of depends on what your goals are, but I personally, instead of quantity and trade, probably would have gone with plutocratic, offensive, maybe religious even, but whatever, you're pretty close anyway. Alright, we've gotten you back down to the good loans, the burger ones, and your income's looking pretty solid. Now, the elephant in the room here is that you have not taken the institution, and it's been 37 years. It's kind of a big issue. It means that your rivals in the New World, like Portuguese Mexico and Caraibas, are more technologically advanced, and if they really wanted to, could decide to declare war against you. That's, you know, Not to mention Portugal themselves and Spain not being too fond of you kind of creates a bit of an issue. So instead of waiting for it to spread and then who knows, maybe it'll spread in like another 30 years, we're not really going to do that. Instead we're going to dev it in New York. 22 is a fairly decent number to start deving something. Plus, as the capital, it has a significant price decrease. Okay, and now with it in the capital, I am kind of considering swapping to Protestant at this point, because, you know, you're not a big fan of the Pope and all that. So you're not getting most of the benefits from Catholicism, and in fact, I would say it's probably just not worth remaining Catholic. Ooh. The president's righteous, that's actually really nice. Plus 0.5 yearly Republican tradition. Not bad at all. Alright, congratulations, we are now loan-free. Now the next thing to do is to wait for the institution to spread around a little bit, stockpile a little bit of money that we've been borrowing permanently from the Caribbean, and that should allow us to pay for it in full. So a bit of advice I would give on institutions is you should probably plan out what you're going to do for each one, instead of just kind of hoping it might spread to you. What I can see here is that you didn't really plan this one out. You were just going to let it spread across the Atlantic and then hopefully in time it would sort of help you out, but honestly that's not a very good way of doing things. If you're not going to be able to have the institution in like the first 20 years of when it starts spreading, probably a good idea to just take things into your own hands. Since you're so far away, you're very unlikely to get cardinals even if you're Catholic. Having it spread through cardinals wasn't really going to happen. Maybe you knew that, but maybe you didn't, so it's okay. But especially for a slow-moving one like the printing press, I would recommend as early as possible slamming down the points and making sure you can get it early on. Now, something I should have done a lot earlier is to swap away from curtailing clerical privileges. Right now, it doesn't really do much at all. It does give you decreased admin tech cost, but the other part doesn't really do anything anymore, since you don't actually have clergy. So instead we're going to swap this over to here, because it'll give you a little bit more money, and it'll decrease the cost of your admin advisor. Plus a bit of decreased unrest is pretty nice. We lose 13 Republican tradition, however, we get something a little better in return, and that's extra points. While stability's already at max, it isn't a huge issue. Alright, Congress, we could definitely use a bit of tech cost decrease. And that's the truce over. Well, fortunately we can't really have a large coalition anymore. Might have something small, but nothing that's a real threat to us. Finally, we can grab that institution. Now all the techs are significantly cheaper. This one's only 437, 461, and 449. Ah, wonderful. Okay, Portugal, what's your beef with me? Yep, this should be fun. Well, anyway, I was in the process of building another army regardless, so it doesn't really matter that much. So they might still declare on us, but after the build-up, we'll have to see. Yep, there it is. Trade protection. Makes a lot of sense. We've kind of been privateering them for a while. Okay, well, that's a pretty lame war. There's not much I can do about that. Looks like they also brought Spain in because they weren't confident enough to do it by themselves. Thank you very much for that one. England is, in theory, going to help us, but of course, in practice, they're going to get stomped on. Nothing new there. Alright, what do you want again? We have a little bit of grace period here before we get our teeth absolutely kicked in. We can slap a couple of ships around, but not much else other than that. Oh god, look at that. A 3-star general. Oh boy. On the bright side, we're still able to steal money during this war, and I can pick up the next Miltech already. So far so good, we're kind of doing alright. The only issue is that the way that they count war score from the taking war score is, well, there's no taking war score, that's about it. It's just however much you blockade, and that's the war score you get. When you stop blockading, you lose all of it. So it's pretty hard to actually just sit here and not get blockaded because, you know, they're just gonna come by and blockade me for half a second, which will reset my taking war score by not getting blockaded. Or it could also just be like time spent blockaded. Either way, it's one of the more annoying war goals. Yeah, let's go hunt more ships again. It's just annoying. Now this is an actual navy. This is an actual problem. 7 heavies, oh boy. And, oh god, a 3-star general. Not looking so good for us here. Yeah, our army is nothing compared to any European power. Oh, yeah, I'm really wishing he didn't fall so far behind in tech, but I'm doing the best I can. Trying my best. It's like, at this point, you might as well just start it as, like, Chickasaw. God. We're at like that level of tech. Yeah, we just cannot win. It is impossible at this point. 2 techs behind is all we need to just have absolutely no chance. Well, that's a shame. Let's see if we can just give them a couple of concessions. And they don't want anything. Cool. That's my favorite kind of war. One done for fun. Anyway, let's try to give them something regardless. This is basically the best we can do for now. We'll have to give them some land, and of course they'll keep privateering them. After all, this is a free 15-year license on stealing their money, but it did come at the cost of around 4 provinces that I can retake and a couple extras that will be a little harder to retake. Oh well, this is just the mistakes catching up after a while. I'm starting to realize we could use a couple more friends. And seeing as Europe is not going to be particularly helpful, we might just look for something while we're here. It would be great to have maybe a couple of, 5 to 10,000 people on my side every time I went to war. These guys are small enough I could probably vassalize them. Plus, since they were released from my territory, they have my religion plus my tech, so they're actually not bad as far as allies or vassals would go. Okay, global trade has arrived. Fortunately, we don't really have to worry about that. All we have to do is keep finishing off the techs we can take right now, and global trade is one of the ones that typically just spawns itself in. Now, for the next idea group, I'd say you're probably looking at plutocratic, or maybe humanist, or religious, or at least something to help you get rid of all the unrest. Personally, I'd say your best bet right now is to go religious and maybe Protestant, since you're getting almost none of the benefits from Catholicism, so switching might make a bit of sense. Also, if you do both those things, go Protestant and finish off religious, then you get the Deus Vult CB against, well, literally everyone on the continent, so probably a good idea if you're thinking of taking over the entire place. And even if you're not, at least it's good for your unrest. Looks like all my privateering accidentally spawned New Providence. Well, we could use that, maybe. Here, how about we try an ally real quick? And this is also the perfect opportunity, while it appears Portugal's a little bit distracted, to go and reclaim what's rightfully ours. I'll be taking that, thank you very much. And it comes with a free 100 ducats. Nice. Okay, that is officially 4 vassals we've gotten. It's not much, but it is at least like an extra 13,000 men. And quite a couple of ships, actually. 5 heavies is nothing to scoff at. We're not quite caught up in technology, but that's okay. Okay, I think I'm also going to make another change to your reforms real quick. It was a pretty long debate between whether or not I should let you keep consolidation of power or whether we should swap to frequent elections. Personally, I think frequent elections are better because you get to level up your presidents faster, and therefore you generate more points, and on the other hand you get more absolutism. Now, considering everything that's going on, the absolutism does not matter. It's not like you're going to be able to conquer a lot for now. And then, of course, you can always just change it back later. So, for now, we're going to go to frequent elections. Alright, congratulations, we've caught up on Miltech finally. At the cost of a little bit of corruption, but we can solve that right now. I think enough time has passed since our last few fights. It's probably a good idea to clean up a little bit and keep on expanding. Not just this down here, but we have a little bit of land to take back all the way up here as well. The privateers are doing a great job at funding our warfare. And the only real point to doing this is to make sure we have a little bit of territory secured before someone like France or Portugal comes and snatches it up. It also gives our vassals a little bit of extra land, and then, we can go ahead and just take that later. Alright, let's hand some stuff off to our subject. Like that right there. And they'll take care of all that coring for us. Okay, I think we're gonna stay on the same path of reducing the length of elections. I think elections can last for only 2 years, but if they can't, then that's fine, we'll just change it later. Speaking of election, yeah, that guy just died. Okay, let's go for the admin guy. Okay, Age of Absolutism. Of course, we're not going to have a whole lot of that, but that's okay, because ultimately, it would not help our situation. Alright, global trade has finally appeared. It's going to take its sweet time moving around, but at least that's a good start. Now that we've taken the 3rd religious idea, I think it's time we finally get it done. We get a fat stack of cash to start with, and we need to start converting real fast. Now we finally finish our national ideas. That's going to give us a little bit more autonomy change decrease, as well as additional Republican tradition, which is fantastic. That means on average every 2 years we can spend 2 Republican tradition to upgrade the stats of our ruler by 3, and as you can imagine, that's going to be very useful for catching up even further. Well, we've already somewhat caught up, but, slingshotting ahead, that is. Alright, Louisiana's managed to form, which means that's going to be mine real quick. After much sitting here and pirating and occasionally making some decent money, we can finally embrace global trade, and for now I'm just going to continue doing the same thing, finishing off the ideas, and then you should be in a decent position to begin actually conquering. While we're doing that, let's talk about a couple of the likely reasons why it didn't really work out the first time. It seems to me like you probably ended up trying to expand and make your name look big, but I can also tell you were somewhat on the right path because you were reducing your autonomy and you were also stating everything, which is a really good idea. But one of the main issues I could see is that you had so many rebels. Now, I understand that you were at -1 stability, which kind of tells you something about that. But it's also kind of hard to rapidly conquer when your overextension plus the separatism from previous provinces tends to stack up, and you haven't converted the provinces fast enough, so you have a lot of rebels. And the fact that you're not using a CV like religious, which would allow you to reduce your aggressive expansion, means that you're going to end up accruing coalitions like that. Now that's gone now, and hopefully that never happens again. But just to be sure, I'm giving you a very useful CB just to, make that a little bit better. You could wait for Tech 21 to get the Imperialism CB, which is an objectively better CB to use frequently, but the fact of the matter is that you're still going to have to convert things. And with the points we have from our religious unity, we can go ahead and get a little bit more Republican tradition. This means every 2 years we spend 1.5 Republican tradition to boost the stats of our president. So we finished off religious ideas for you. Now once we catch back up in admin technology, which shouldn't be so bad considering it's so cheap, you'll have all that extra admin you can use and that fresh CB to start conquering things. Alright, quantity ideas are also now complete. That'll get you an extra 20% goods produced, morale of armies, land force limit, stuff like that. With all the piracy we've been doing, trust me when I say we've been making far more money off of just straight piracy than we have off of the economy. Fortunately, all those excess funds can go into manufactories and production buildings, so now you're the proud owner of an actual economy. Now for the next idea group, I'm not going to pick it for you because we're getting pretty close to finishing this whole thing up, but if I can give you a couple of recommendations, they would include diplomatic for the province war score cost decrease, possibly offensive for the discipline as well as the siege ability, or admin for the coring cost, since you're going to be doing a whole lot of that. Plutocratic is also not a bad option. Alright, that's the second large subject. Unfortunately, we can't take all this stuff back. Well, I mean, you could try. It wouldn't actually be that hard considering, AI, France, landing, not a lot of troops. But that's not really something I want to do right now. And would you look at that, now we're a great power finally. Let's just take this tech real quick and maybe a couple of mil techs, and we should be done. Alright England, this is probably the worst thing you've done so far, which is actually surprising because they haven't done much at all. Now that we're caught up on admin and we have that fancy CB, we can start using it to reclaim a couple of our previous losses. The number of losses is a little bit more than I thought they were. We now have absolute technological supremacy, so it's not going to be very hard at all. Yeah, if we want to, we can even push a bit further. Alright, let's see what we can start taking. And that looks pretty good to me. And we'll take this, and that. Okay, well, I don't want to go ahead and just play the entire game for you, but again, I want you to have at least a little bit of fun continuing the game. So it's pretty solid. I've been building a lot of manufactories, and if I had the chance, I would have built up a whole bunch of dev over here, because you just need one extra province next to New York to have 15 development, and then you have a decent chance at actually spawning manufactories, and that would be wonderful. Regardless, manufactories is going to spread very easily for you since I've built so many of them, and of course my recommendation would be to continue building them. As you've seen, it's pretty easy to push westward nowadays. The only real rival you're going to have is Portuguese Mexico once they become independent from Portugal. Portugal themselves probably wouldn't be a very good fight to take. You might be able to win, but might doesn't instill a lot of confidence, so for now, colonizing a few provinces, pushing westwards, and continuing to build up is definitely your best bet. And with that, I'd say that this save has functionally been rescued. Caught up on all technologies, your presidents is 665, and of course I'd recommend continuing to push the next few presidents to the maximum level as soon as possible. Keep in mind, as a republic, you make ridiculous number of points, and even so, it still took this long to solve all those mistakes. But, big problems sometimes require even bigger solutions, so that's why I had to play for so long to get to this point. But for now, your situation's a little bit more straightforward. Of course, don't forget to state everything, annex your subject that I've made here. And after you've taken everything you can over here, which is super easy to do, then you should probably start to fight the colonial nation. But that's it for today. If you enjoyed watching, don't forget to subscribe, that would be fantastic. I haven't done one of those call to action things in like a really long time, so, 50,000 by the end of the year, that would be cool. Anyway, hope you enjoyed it. That's it for me today. This is Corbett signing off, and as always, have a fantastic day. Big thanks to the patrons this month. All of these people get early access to videos, so if you want early access to videos, all you have to do is check down in the description and subscribe to the Patreon for at least $1, and if you're looking for something else to watch, I'd recommend these videos up on screen.